Hi friends, and welcome to Folklore Diaries. Here, we share real-life horror stories and chilling legends from around the world. Some of them happen to our listeners, others have been passed down for years. So get comfortable but stay alert, because the next story might just keep you awake tonight. And if you like true horror stories, consider subscribing. Okay, let's begin. Japan is full of ghost stories. There are tales of cursed tunnels, haunted schools, and restless spirits who follow you home from shrines and graveyards. But some of the most chilling legends do not come from the cities at all. They come from the countryside, where the nights are darker, the roads are empty, and old wooden houses still stand alone, forgotten by time. One of these houses is hidden in a quiet farming village in Niigata Prefecture. It is a place that even the locals avoid, a place that has stood for more than 100 years. The villagers call it the house beyond the rice fields. To reach the house, you must walk along a narrow dirt road. On both sides, rice fields stretch out like golden oceans. In summer, you can hear frogs singing in the water and cicadas screaming in the trees. Life there feels calm, almost frozen in time. But the further you walk, the quieter it becomes. And then you see it. A large two-story farmhouse, half sunken into the earth, leaning with age. Its wooden walls are dark, almost black. The roof tiles are cracked and falling. The veranda is broken, sagging toward the weeds that choke the yard. What makes it frightening is not just the way it looks, it is the silence. Around this house, no frogs sing. No insects call. Even the wind seems to die before reaching the wooden walls. It feels as if the house itself swallows sound, drinking it in like breath. And sometimes, if you look up at the second floor, you might see a faint glow. The light of a lantern, even though nobody has lived there for decades. The villagers say the house was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy rice farmer named Sakurai Genjiro. He lived there with his wife and their only daughter, Aiko. At first, life was good. The Sakurai family owned wide fields and had servants to help with the harvest. The daughter, Aiko, was known in the village as beautiful. Long black hair, white skin, delicate features. Many young men wished to marry her. But Aiko was sickly. She often stayed inside, looking from the upstairs window. Some say she was lonely. Others whisper that she spoke of voices in the walls and shadows in the corners. One winter, Aiko was found dead in her upstairs bedroom. The official word was sickness, but the villagers whispered other things. Some said she had hanged herself from the beam in the ceiling. Others believed her father, drunk with anger one night, had beaten her. And a few swore they saw strange marks on her body, as if something had pulled her into the walls. After her death, the Sakurai family left. They abandoned the farmhouse, leaving everything behind. But the villagers said Aiko's spirit never left. Over the years, travelers and outsiders tried to live in the farmhouse, but none stayed long. In the 1930s, a young couple moved in. After 3 months, the husband was found wandering the rice fields at night, muttering that a woman with no face was following him. The wife left the village the next day and never returned. In the 1950s, the house was briefly used for storage by a rice merchant. Workers refused to go inside after they heard crying from the walls. One man claimed cold fingers touched his neck when he tried to open the upstairs door. In the 1970s, a university student stayed for research. He wanted to prove the house was not haunted. He wrote daily notes about strange smells, footsteps, and sobbing at night. On the 10th day, his notes ended. He was never seen again. By the 1980s, the villagers no longer went near the house. Even children were warned never to play there. The road grew empty. The fields around it became overgrown. But still, the house stood, rotting but unbroken, waiting. In 2012, a man named Daichi arrived in the village. He was 35 years old, thin, with tired eyes. He had worked in Tokyo for many years as an office employee. The stress, the long train rides, the endless hours had left him broken. He wanted escape, peace, and quiet. When he heard there was a cheap farmhouse for rent, he did not hesitate. The landlord warned him. "This house is not ordinary," he said carefully. But Daichi laughed. "I don't believe in ghosts." For him, The idea of a haunted house sounded like superstition. He wanted silence, and the house seemed perfect. He moved in during the autumn, when the rice fields were golden and the air smelled of harvest. The first week was peaceful. Daichi spent mornings in the garden, afternoons writing in his notebook, and evenings watching the sun sink behind the rice fields. He felt free for the first time in years, but he noticed the villagers were distant. They were polite, but their eyes avoided his. Some crossed the road when passing him. One old woman whispered, "You should not stay there after dark." Daichi brushed it off. To him, they were simply superstitious. But inside the house, small things began to happen. The air inside the house was colder than outside. Even with all the windows open, the rooms felt heavy like a cave. At night, Daichi heard faint creaks above his futon. He told himself it was just the wood settling. He woke at midnight to a sound. A faint, soft sound. A woman was crying upstairs. His skin went cold, but he told himself it was the wind. He did not go upstairs. The crying came again, this time clearer. He lit a candle and walked upstairs. At the end of the hallway, in the moonlight, he saw her. A woman in a white kimono, sitting in the corner of the upstairs room. Her long black hair hung over her face. She wept softly into her hands. Daichi whispered, "Are you okay?" Her crying stopped. She lowered her hands. Her head turned. Her face was smooth. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, only pale skin. The candle went out. Daichi wrote in his notebook, "I saw her. She has no face. It was not a dream." He tried to leave the house that day, but every time he reached the door, he felt sick, dizzy, as if the air itself pushed him back. He stayed inside. The crying came from the walls. Sometimes soft knocks followed it, as if someone was trapped inside. He pressed his ear against the wood. For a moment, he thought he heard whispering, "Stay with me." The smell of perfume drifted through the halls. Old-fashioned, like flowers mixed with rot. He saw shadows move in the corners of his eyes. He no longer slept. His notebook was filled with frantic writing. The crying changed. It became laughter. Low, hollow laughter that shook the beams of the house. That night, Daichi wrote, "She is closer now. She watches me while I write. She is waiting upstairs." On the 14th day, the villagers noticed Daichi's absence. They had not seen him in the fields. A brave villager walked to the house. The veranda door was open. Inside, the air was freezing cold. Daichi was gone. His belongings were still there. His phone, his wallet, his clothes, all untouched. Only his notebook remained. The last page read, "She is in the walls. She follows me from room to room. I cannot leave. Tonight, she wants me upstairs. If I open the door, I will not return." And below it, smeared and uneven, were the words, "Do not open the door." The farmhouse still stands at the end of the rice fields. It is broken, leaning, its windows empty. Nobody rents it now. Nobody dares. But travelers sometimes say that on a quiet night, they saw a faint lantern glowing in the upstairs window. And if you stand too close, you might hear it too. A woman weeping softly in the dark. And if you stay too long, if you answer her crying, or walk upstairs when she calls, you may never leave. The villagers who lived near the Sakurai farmhouse carried decades of whispered encounters, and though most refused to speak openly, some stories slipped out in hushed tones over sake or at late-night gatherings. An old farmer named Kenta once recalled walking home past the house during harvest season. He swore he saw a woman in a white kimono standing in the doorway, her head bowed, her long black hair swaying even though the air was still. And when he blinked, she was suddenly at the gate as if the distance had collapsed in an instant, causing him to flee and never again take that road after sunset. A midwife from the village, Sachiko, spoke of a night when she heard a baby crying near the farmhouse as she walked back from delivering a child. But when she followed the sound, she found the windows open and the crying echoing from within. Though the house had been abandoned for years, she claimed the crying turned into laughter as she ran. And later her dreams were haunted by faceless women cradling infants that had no eyes or mouths. In the late 1960s, two brothers dared each other to climb into the house, but only one returned, his younger brother screaming, insisting that Aiko had grabbed the other and pulled him into the wall. Though the missing boy's body was never found, the family was too frightened to search inside after sundown, and they left offerings of rice and water at the gate for years afterward. Another villager, Haruto, said he was passing by on a snowy night and saw candlelight flickering upstairs, as though someone was walking with a lantern. But when he looked closely, he realized the light was not steady. It was pulsing, like it was breathing, and in that rhythm he heard faint sobs. He collapsed in the snow and later told his wife that he felt hands on his back, pushing him toward the house, until a neighbor rescued him. The most chilling tale came from a woodcutter named Masaru, who claimed that while chopping trees near the property, he heard his dead wife calling his name from inside the house. Trembling, he went to the door but stopped when he saw her figure in the upper window, waving to him with a smile he knew wasn't hers, for her face melted into smooth skin as she waved. After that day, he never worked near the farmhouse again, saying the land itself had become poisoned with grief. These stories, passed down through generations, shaped the village's deep fear of the farmhouse, not just as an abandoned building, but as a living place, hungry and waiting for anyone foolish enough to listen to the cries from its walls. When Daichi vanished, the villagers pretended not to notice at first. No one wanted to speak of the farmhouse aloud. But a week later, a local boy found Daichi's notebook lying at the edge of the rice fields, its pages soaked by dew. The final entries were frantic, the words scrawled over each other as though written in panic. She is calling me upstairs. The door won't stay shut. The walls are breathing. She knows my name now. The villagers burned the notebook to break any curse it carried, but strange things began to happen immediately after. Dogs barked at the farmhouse at night. Farmers heard a man crying for help from the windows, and once, a lantern glowed faintly upstairs though the house had no electricity. Out of fear, no one dared enter. But one stormy evening, Kenta, the old farmer, swore he saw Daichi himself standing by the farmhouse gate, drenched in rain, smiling in a way that made his stomach twist. The smile was stretched too wide, too stiff, and when Kenta shouted his name, Daichi turned slowly, his face smooth and pale, just like the faceless woman's. Others claimed to hear his voice calling from inside the house, begging anyone passing by to open the door. The villagers realized, with growing dread, that Aiko had not simply claimed him, she had made him part of the house. His soul had merged with hers, his identity erased until he became another faceless figure wandering its rooms. The final and most horrifying detail came weeks later when a traveling priest attempted to cleanse the house. He nailed protective charms around the doors and recited sutras, but as night fell, the upstairs shutters banged open on their own, and for a moment he saw two figures standing side by side in the window. A woman in a white kimono and a man in city clothes, both with long black hair covering faces that had no eyes, no mouth, only smooth pale skin. And then, in the silence between thunderclaps, he swore he heard Daichi's voice whisper, "It's your turn to open the door." The priest left the village that same night and never returned, and to this day, locals say the farmhouse is no longer haunted by just one ghost. It is now haunted by two, Aiko and Daichi, waiting together for the next person foolish enough to listen to their weeping and step inside. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, not every shadow is empty, and not every voice in the dark is in your head. Good night, and stay safe.